And I realized as a nurse that my eating habits weren't incredibly healthy. And I started feeling some shame around it. And I started hiding my food choices from my husband. I would hide my wrappers in my car. I would get food from work to home and kind of pre-eat before I got home so he wouldn't be seeing how much I was eating. And that's when I really noticed, okay, this isn't healthy. Like I shouldn't be acting like this. Food is food. You just eat food and move on. And I tried so many things. I did Beachbody and all sorts of different food weight loss programs, diet culture and weight loss programs. It's a multi-million billion dollar industry, right? So there's lots of options out there, but for me and my brain, it didn't work. And it just got worse and worse.
Welcome to Functional Medicine Coaching Moms podcast, where simplifying healthy lifestyle change for moms is the only goal. We are so excited to have Linnea Offerman on the show today. She is a nurse and functional medicine board certified health coach. She has worked in traditional medicine, public health as a school nurse, and functional medicine one-on-one with health coaching clients.
Linnea has had her own health journey becoming sober from food. As a food addict, Linnea has followed a specific recovery program to create healthy boundaries around food that has had her heal her relationship with food and helped her maintain a 90-pound weight loss. Linnea, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your story about food addiction and your tips for moms trying to navigate the difficult process of raising kids and possibly themselves in a sugar and processed food-filled America. Can you share a little bit about your food addiction journey, where you were then to where you are now?
Yes, I would love to. It's my favorite thing to share about. So thank you so much for having me on today. I'm so excited to share and just hope that someone listening can see a little bit of themselves in my story and know that there's some hope and know that it's not just about them, but their children that they're raising, right? So I've been overweight my entire adult life, not really as a child, but boy, when I got on my own and got to make my own food decisions, I enjoyed all of the luxuries of the standard American diet. As adulthood moved forward and stresses came up, I really turned to food as a coping mechanism, emotional support. When I got married, I went from living on my own to being a spouse and being a partner and having someone around. And I realized as a nurse that my eating habits weren't incredibly healthy. And I started feeling some shame around it. And I started hiding my food choices from my husband. I would hide my wrappers in my car. I would get food from work to home and kind of pre-eat before I got home so he wouldn't be seeing how much I was eating. And that's when I really noticed, okay, this isn't healthy. Like I shouldn't be acting like this. Food is food. You just eat food and move on. And I tried so many things. I did Beachbody and all sorts of different food weight loss programs, diet culture and weight loss programs. It's a multi-million billion dollar industry, right? So there's lots of options out there, but for me and my brain, it didn't work. And it just got worse and worse. And when the pandemic hit and we were on lockdown, it really came to a head. I saw a friend become very successful with her weight loss journey with intuitive eating. And intuitive eating makes sense as a nurse. It's very healthy, very, self-conscious. And I tried it and I gained 30 pounds in a month and a half. Intuitive eating is wonderful, but it's not for a food addict. For me, my brain is actually wired in an addictive state. Like, I'm very thankful I haven't had an addictive tendency with drugs or alcohol. That hasn't been my story, but it has been around food. I treat food the way I hear people talking about drugs and alcohol, my brain was never not thinking about food. I would be eating food thinking, what am I going to get next? What's my next hit? I'm driving home. Where am I driving? Where can I go on my way home to pick something up? And so after my trial with intuitive eating faded and I realized, okay, this isn't working. This is drastic. I'm gaining weight just minute after minute, day after day. I found a program called Brightline Eating and it's a little intense. And I thought, boy, my situation's intense. I need something intense. So I jumped in head first and the peace and the calmness that I received around food was drastic. I have 4 bright lines. I follow 4 lines, no sugar. It's not needed, right? We can get plenty of beautifully healthy carbohydrate full sugars from fruit, from brown rice, from real natural foods. So no sugar, no artificial sweeteners either, because they trick our brains into wanting more and more and more. No flour. So I still eat whole grains. I eat potatoes and sweet potatoes and brown rice and quinoa quinoa. I personally don't do gluten, but whole wheat, not ground down into five, that powdery flour that kind of looks like cocaine, I'm going to say, right? The sugar and the flour.
That
You
is
look at them next to each
true.
other. They used to be a whole plant and it's ground down into a fine powder. Okay, so no sugar, no flour. Third is I eat 3 meals a day with zero snacking. I eat a beautiful full breakfast, a beautiful full lunch, and a beautiful full supper. It takes away all of the decision making I have to throughout the day. If someone's like,
Yes.
when I was in the hospital and I was walking past the break room, there's just mounds of food in there. It's not mealtime. I'm not going to eat. I will eat my food when it's mealtime. And I always know there's another meal coming. So if I'm feeling a little hungry, well, at about an hour, I'll be eating again. No problem. The fourth line
Love that.
is,
Love that.
I will be sustained with my 3 meals. And the fourth is I measure and weigh all of my food. And honestly, it's to make sure I'm getting enough. Because when we're used to eating lots of food all day long, we might not get enough in our 3 meals. I'm putting my plate on a digital food scale and I'm measuring. And that also takes all of my brain power out of it. I just know when I have breakfast, I have 4 ounces of grain, 6 ounces of fruit, and 4 ounces of a protein. And that's my beautiful breakfast. And I can eat it and move on. I know I had enough. I know I didn't have too much. And my brain just eats it and moves on. And I don't have to worry. And the wheels aren't going nonstop anymore. So that's what it looks like now. I just eat my meal and I move on. And I've had so much more space in my life. Now that I'm not constantly thinking in the food, I went back to school and I'm nationally board certified health and wellness coach. This is something brand new in my life since I became sober from food. I'm just thrilled. And in this, I have transitioned my family to a no sugar, low processed food lifestyle as well. And I had to get myself taken care of first to be able to have the bandwidth. And then I brought my family into it as well. I have 2 little kids and they don't have 4 bright lines. They don't. They get some of what I do with Brightline Eating and my food sobriety, but they're not food addicts. They're kids. They need more food in the day. They need more carbohydrates. I'm not measuring their food. They're eating intuitively, but they're eating no sugar except for like in the house. So I'm hoping to teach them really great, understanding that on a day-to-day basis, we fuel our bodies and give our bodies healthy, nourishing food so that we can run fast and jump and play and learn at school. And then when those treats come up later, like at a birthday party, sure, we have a treat. And then we come back home and in our home, we eat the food that fuels our body.
Love that. I have a question. How did you come up with the specific measures, on the scale for your food? Like, how did you know, like 4 ounces of this? How did you come
That
up with
was
that?
provided in Brightline Eating. So there's a standard just across the board men's program. And actually they're calling it now a standard weight loss and then an enhanced protein for men or just women that have more muscle tone. But there is a community aspect and there is coaching. So the program can be individualized for people that maybe are shorter and don't need as much or taller, more active that maybe need more. But there's a standard plan that everyone starts on and it has all of that. When Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson started the program, it was the bare bones. It started from like an OA background, and then she hired dietitians and nutritionists to make sure everything looked good and that it was good macronutrients and a good standard nutritionally solid program for the general public, as long as they knew that, okay, you can go on for coaching any day of the week and talk to a Brightline Eating coach and get specific measurements adjusted for your physical needs. So there's always that option. But I'm a pretty standard person height-wise, so the weight loss plan worked great for me. And then the great thing about once you get into maintenance, you add food. I have an abundance of beautiful, healthy whole food that I eat every day.
How did you discover the program? Because like you said, there's so many different diet plans out there. It's so overwhelming, so confusing, so frustrating for so many people. How did you find Brightline?
So I was in a Bible study with a couple of really close girlfriends, and it was the first time I ever spoke out loud the fact that I said, I think I have an addiction to food. And that feels weird to say because I've never heard anyone say it. And I explained to them what goes on in my brain, how I never stop thinking about it, how I'm always hiding things and looking for food. And I would put food in my pockets to go from the break room or at a party and go eat in the bathroom so that people weren't seeing the amount I was eating. I mean, it was kind of crazy. And I was finally divulged this information to a couple friends. friends, and they were so loving and generous and caring and supported me. And one of my friends said, well, have you ever heard of Brightline Eating? And she was a social media manager for a gentleman that lost 150 pounds on the program. And so she had heard of that through him. And it was a year later, because when I looked at it and I was like, that's scary. I'm not ready. And it was a year later of living in my addiction still and being miserable and putting on weight and trying intuitive eating, and then finally realizing it's not working. I need something new, that I finally reached out and started Brightline Eating.
Wow, what a story. That's so exciting that you were able to go from, learning about it, processing, because change is so hard, as we know. We all talk about as health coaches. It's, sometimes you're just not ready, but that you were able to find that time that was right for you. And then stay with it.
And so I'm really curious, because with the Bright Light Eating program that you were in, it sounds like they had coaches there.
Yes.
So now with because I know you're a nurse and you're a health coach and you're nationally board certified health coach, right? Functional medicine. And what you do, how did you take your experience? Now, you're not a coach for or with, you're not associated with Bright Light Eating, right? You're one of their success stories. And then you started your own thing.
Yeah, so that has been an interesting thing to navigate, because I know that the Brightline Eating has worked for me, and food addiction recovery is what I need. And studies have shown that maybe like a third people in, developed countries with processed food have an addictive tendency towards food. But that means there's 2/3 of people that don't need this program. I have had my own functional medicine health journey with gut health and a few different things as well. And so maybe someday I would love to be able to support people as a coach with Brightline Eating, but that's not in the cards right now. And right now I'm in my personal coaching practice, and I'm in a clinic with a functional medicine doctor who's phenomenal, and she's on board with Brightline Eating. She did it herself to test it out. She said it's healthy, it's great, it's awesome. We recommend it to a lot of our patients, but we also do other food programs with our patients. And I coach people on intuitive eating, and I coach people on their desired outcomes. And so that's the beautiful thing about being a coach, is I'm walking alongside someone in their journey. And even though I have my experience with my journey, it's not going to be the same for everybody. And if someone wants to know about Brightline Eating, I will happily explain it. I'll point them in the right direction. But when they come and get services from me, I'm definitely doing it not in a Brightline Eating manner, but there's definitely things I've learned that have helped that I can pass on. Absolutely. So I do general functional medicine health coaching besides just my own personal Brightline Eating experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. There's no one size fits all, as we know. Everyone's so
and even
different.
within Brightline Eating, vegans, we have carnivores. I mean, it doesn't matter what food you're eating. It's about how we eat our food and how we structure our relationship around food. So that has been a great learning opportunity for me, because my wonderful friends in my mastermind group, we all have different programs in Brightline Eating. And so that's been a great learning opportunity for me to go then and health coach someone that eats drastically different than me. We all have different health goals. Bioindividuality is a real thing. So a whole food plant-based for one person's body works beautifully. It decreases inflammation. But then a keto or carnivore-based diet might be what another person's body needs to decrease inflammation. And they're so different, but they work because our bodies are so unique and different in themselves.
I was going to ask you a little bit, Linnea, about your family and transitioning over, to, it is really difficult as a parent. We actually did an episode early on in our podcast about raising kids in a sugar and processed food filled America. Like it's everywhere you go nowadays. It's not, and I know you mentioned like it's the birthday party, but like it seems nowadays it's been even more than that. Like it's like on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
It's being offered, the treats and that kind of thing. So what's your thoughts on that?
So if food is in the house, it will be eaten. Absolutely. So if you're buying snack food, processed snack foods, processed foods for convenience, and that's really the big word, right? We're so busy and we're so active, and our kids are busy and we're busy, and they have school and extracurriculars and we have meetings. And so it really comes down to priority. And if your priority is your family's health, you will take the time and make the time, no matter what is going on, to work on creating healthy food in your house. And it does take effort and time. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a piece of cake and it was easy. It's been hard work, and it's still like I schedule in my day. I know exactly when I'll be cooking. I do something called Food Factory Sunday. So on Sundays, I go grocery grocery shopping, I come home and I spend 3 hours in the kitchen preparing food for the whole week, not every single thing we eat, but most of our food for the whole week, so that on the days that we are going from bus pickup to ballet to soccer to home to bed, that I have healthy foods in the fridge ready to just pull out, assemble meals, get my family fed, and then off the door to their next thing. We don't stop at McDonald's. We don't stop at fast food. I take the time, I make the time. It's a priority in my life to spend time on a Saturday or a Sunday, or if it's so busy and I miss it, then I'm staying up late on Monday night to get it done. Every single night before I go to bed, I have a kitchen routine. I clean up the kitchen, I make my lunch, I make my kids' lunch for the next day, put it in the fridge. It's totally ready. So all I have to do in the morning is put it in their lunchbox. They do not eat school lunch because I don't have control over school lunch. And school lunch is, they do their best, but it is not up to my
We have a
standards.
ways, yeah.
They
We
do
might
their
have a ways
best.
to go on that.
They do. So my kids take their lunch every day, but I take the time to pack their lunch. I make them an actual real breakfast every morning. They get oatmeal. They get what I call a rice frittata, rice scrambled with eggs and cinnamon and vanilla fried in a pan. And it's my
Yummy.
with peanut butter and raisins on top. My daughter loves it. It's her favorite breakfast.
Ooh, that sounds yummy.
Yeah, or oatmeal, scrambled eggs and Ezekiel toast. There's just so many good options that just take some time. So that means I wake up 20 minutes earlier than I would have if I could have just slept in, given them a granola bar or cereal and out the door. So I wake up 20 minutes early so that I can have those 20 minutes in the kitchen to actually make them breakfast. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes time for the kids to get used to it too. I remember the first time I was like, okay, we're going to do this. I sat down with the kids and I made it this game, and it was exciting. I said, for a week, we're going to have a challenge. We're going to see if we can have no sugar in our house, because sugar helps our brain not learn, and we want our brains to learn. And we're going to do no sugar and see how it goes. And so every day I would check in. How was your food? Did it still taste good? Did you miss the sugar? And they were like, no, it was fine. And I can't guarantee your kids will, but they were little, and I tried
I
to
was
make
going to
that
say the
Saturday.
younger kids, I think, are easier.
Yes. And so we made this challenge of it, and we got through a week and it went fine. And I said, okay, it went great. We're going to do one more week. And then we just didn't talk about it. And it became our normal, and they still asked for things. I said, well, we're not going to have that in our house, but maybe some other time when, we'll get that another time, but we're not going to have that in our house. So it did take time. And I put vegetables on my kids' plate for lunch and supper every day for the last 2 years. And I tell you, 2 years later, they might still complain a little bit, but they eat them all.
Wow.
They eat them
Okay.
because they are used to it, and they didn't at first.
Yeah.
They didn't. It would be on their plate. It might go in the trash, but consistency has
Yes.
worked. And they just, when kids are used to processed food, like a Cheez-It, one Cheez-It to the 50th Cheez-It, they all look exactly the same. They have the same texture. They have the same taste. But when you put a blueberry on their plate or a piece of broccoli, they're cooked different. Blueberries, sometimes they're soft, sometimes they're firm, sometimes they're tart, sometimes they're sweet. And so for kids, especially little kids, that's challenging. They'd rather have that uniformity that they're used to and that they like and that's highly palatable, opposed to the natural foods that have some variety and taste and texture. And so it really takes practice and a calm spirit to understand that some days the texture might be an issue, end up having to eat all the blueberries because the kids aren't going to eat them.
Well, I like how you're acknowledging, that it's not a linear process, that it's not super easy. You're really prioritizing this and putting a lot of effort in. But at the same time, it sounds like you've streamlined things for yourself, like where you say you eat 3 meals a day. It's taking that guesswork out of, should I have that or shouldn't I have that? You're kind of taking that horrible decision fatigue that we all experience out of your life.
It's a thing. Yes.
So while you've added more work, it sounds like there's a lot of relief as well. It's kind
There
of both.
is, and I have more space now that I've taken care of my brain space. I've taken care of my issues. I have more availability in my day. I'm not eating all day long, so I have more time, little time in my day to prep food, and I have the bandwidth because it's so important. My why is so deep in creating health for my kids so that they don't grow up at risk for type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular disease or cancer. Like, I want to set them up for success. And I explain, they know mommy lost weight, and I used to eat not healthy food, and I eat healthy food now, and I choose to eat that food that makes my brain feel good, my body feel good. I explain when we're eating food, like what food is doing for our body. And I'm not demonizing the foods we're not eating. We're just really talking about the amazing things that the healthy foods do for our bodies.
Yes.
Love
yeah.
that.
Interest of our time here, we would just like to ask you, we ask everybody, like, what are 2 simple things a mom can start with today day to improve the food that they're eating in their household for both themselves and their kids?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing kind of was in your question, but the first thing is to take care of yourself first, because it's like putting that life mask on, that in the airplane when you put the air mask on yourself first before you can help someone else. So
Yeah.
if you are struggling with your food and your food choices and that addictive pull of sugar and processed foods, you got to take care of that first. It's really hard to help manage your kids and your family's food choices when your food choices and the brain thoughts and spinning around food is going out of control. So take care of yourself first. There is a food susceptibility quiz called, and you can find that at foodfreedomquiz.com through Brightline Eating. And it's, I think, 6 easy questions that you just answer, like from 0 to 5. And it tells you on a scale from 0 to 10, your susceptibility score for being addicted to processed foods and sugar, what we call a 10 plus plus. I'm a 10, but if it could have been higher, it would have been higher. Absolutely. So,
Okay.
but
That's
Brightline
funny.
Eating helps supports. There's people in the program that are 2s and 3s because they just don't think about food. So like they almost need to weigh and measure their food because they don't know how to manage their food because they never think about food. There's different ways it can support different people on that scale, but knowing where you're at in that is really important. So if you're low on the food susceptibility scale, maybe intuitive eating would work great for you. And that's a phenomenal thing that you can add into your life. You're up, 7, 8, 9, 10, then maybe getting those foods out of your body to help your brain heal is what you need. So taking care of yourself first. And then second, if it's in the house, people are going to eat it. So if you're in charge of grocery shopping, you're in charge of what's coming in your house. So making those decisions, because if you have highly processed snack food in your house and you don't want your family to eat it, well, it's going to get eaten because it's in the house. So that's kind of that first step, is even just what's in the house. That, yep, they might go to school and eat school lunches. Yep, they might go to an after school program and get snacks. But what are they getting in your house? That's one place that you have control over, that you have the ability to work around simple steps. And when they say, oh, Mom, there's no Cheetos in there. No, but I've got carrot sticks and apples, and help yourself to almonds. Like, find what's in the house, find it, and have a snack.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's so true. And it can be hard as a parent, to make those choices. I try never to go to the store hungry because I feel like I make such poor choices if I'm starving and I'm in the grocery store.
I only go to the grocery store during the middle of the day after I've had breakfast or lunch. I can't go in the evening anymore. My brain evening was a huge snack time for me, and no one's watching. I'm out alone.
Yeah. And then there's also the part of, I remember my kids when telling me, Mom, why don't you get the little, what is it, those little muffins that come in?
Oh, little bites.
Yeah, little bites.
Yeah.
You never get us little bites, and you never get us this. And all our friends, they get the little like Sunkiss drinks. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because I am aware of maybe a lot of things that maybe those parents aren't really aware of. And like, I just try to explain to them, because it's so hard. Because sometimes I think as a parent, sometimes you feel guilty, like, oh, they get all these, these fun things that could just go in their cabinets and grab them. But I was like, I'm really sorry. I can't go against the things that I feel are best for us. But
we have
when
a
you
mantra.
go out the door, when you go out the door, you're going to probably eat some of that. I can't, like you said, I couldn't control that, but that is a challenge, I think, for a lot of like moms out there, like, having to battle with their kids.
Yeah. We have a
What's
mantra
your
in our
mantra?
house with our family, and it is different families have different rules. And my kids we've been saying that since they could barely talk. And like when they say, well, so-and-so gets to stay up till 9 p.m., different families have different rules, and that's okay. But in our family, you go to bed at 7:30. And when it comes to, well, so-and-so always gets like whatever in his lunch, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Different families have different rules. In our lunches, this is what we have. So my kids, they say it themselves too. They'll say it to each other. TJ will say, Millie, different families have different rules.
Well, thank you for those 2 simple tips for our moms. And I just want to make everyone aware that Linnea is in the process of creating an education and group coaching community geared toward moms looking to move their children and homes toward whole, real foods. Follow her on social media to be the first to know when these educational opportunities and supportive communities go live.
And you can find Linnea on Facebook and TikTok at Healthy Looks Good on You. That's all one word. And then Instagram and YouTube at healthy_looks_good_on_you. And we will link that in the show notes for everybody so they can find that. And we'll also link the quiz. Yeah. that
And
you
if you want
mentioned.
to learn more about whether or not you have an issue with food addiction, visit www.foodfreedomquiz.com and you can take that free quiz and learn more. And as Kristen said, we will link all of this in the show notes.
Thank you so much, Linnea. This was such a great conversation. It's so important for moms, and we appreciate your time.
The information provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, curing, treating, or preventing any disease. We are functional medicine certified health coaches and not licensed medical professionals. The opinions and advice of guests are their own and also not considered to be medical advice. Always consult with a healthcare professional when making any healthy lifestyle changes. We would love to hear from our mom community. Any wellness topics that are high on your list, please DM us at Functional Medicine Coaching Moms. We can also be reached via email at info@functionalmedicinecoachingmoms.com. You can find Functional Medicine Coaching Moms podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button.